Welcome to this episode of the YAHOWAH blog. I'm your host, Craig Winn. It is Monday, September 1st of 2025, and we're going to continue our presentation of the book of Daniel, now in the 8th chapter, as we have reached a very decisive moment in the text. I'm joined today by both Richard and by Leah. Leah's got the Wookiee paw going full steam there. And for those who are fans of the fur faces, Asher is also here, but she is down protecting my feet in case somebody were to come and attack us. They are now
steal your sandals.
Absolutely safe. Yes, my flip-flops are out of harm's way. So here we are with a very interesting statement. It announces the identity of someone that most have never contemplated before. I hadn't before translating this text and trying to understand it. But it is interesting in that we have three speakers in the book of Daniel. Daniel himself was not a prophet. He is put in this position because he could write. And it was somebody needed to write what was being conveyed at this critical juncture so that the future would be known. Not only the future as it relates to our past and therefore the fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim by Dod, the Messiah, in his second of three lives when he gave the exact date that he would complete Chak Matzah in year 4000 Yah, which is 33 CE, but also about what would happen in those 7 years that he was specific to explain, because they are so critical to his plans, God's plans, our future, in later depictions of time, taking us forward to our time today. And in that Daniel wasn't a prophet, the three people who are speaking to him and delivering the prophecies are our Messiah and King, David, who is called here Gabriel. Gab means, Gabor means to be a courageous, capable, confident man. And El is God. So this is God's most capable and competent individual, who, of course, is David. There is also Michael. Neither Gabriel nor Michael are ever presented as if they were Malach. They are not spiritual beings in this instance.
They are men.
They are men, and they are identified as such. Michael is one who is right about God. Mm-hmm. There is a third witness here who is also a prophet, speaking about what is to come. He is not actually named in this text, because he will be named shortly thereafter in the last book of prophecy, that being Michael. And in the last chapter of that book, we're told that the final witness's name is none other than the great Eliah. And so these are the three individuals who are speaking. And in this particular case, one of them, in all likelihood, it is Elijah, is asking the other, Michael, who is being described here as a Palmoni, to answer a question. My wife chuckles because Palmoni in
my little
in
Palmoni
in English has a cuteness associated with it. But I can assure you, there is nothing cute about what is assigned to this individual. He is a bull. In fact, he is a raging bull. Mm-hmm. And his sacrifice is what spares the mortal remnant of Yisrael so that they can enter Yahweh's presence. So here's the testimony. I believe this is the 8th chapter, 13th statement. Then I chose to listen intensely, and I heard, this is from Wah Shama, of my own free will, I decided to pay attention to what was being said because of the genuine and ongoing implications of what I heard. Now, that is important because he is not listening to Yahowah. If he was listening to Yahowah and reporting what Yahowah said, then Daniel would be a what?
A prophet.
That is correct. But because he is listening and somebody else is speaking, one of the three individuals, men, who came to him, they would be the prophets, and Daniel is
That
the
is right.
scribe.
Yes.
This was written in the call imperfect, paragogic, hey, cohortative. Now, Rich, would you like to take a whack at what all of that means? What is conveyed by the call stem?
I'm a little busy here.
You're a little busy here making all the controls work. Okay. Call stem means that what being conveyed here should be interpreted literally. There is a genuine relationship that is being established between the speaker and the individual that he is speaking about. And this would be the person writing this would be Daniel. And so he is speaking about the Ichad Kodash, this individual who is now speaking. And he says that what he is saying about him should be interpreted genuinely and literally. The paragogic hey conveys a sense of passion, a sense of importance, a sense of
Pay attention.
Yeah, very much pay attention. Behold, I'm emphasizing this point. This is an emphatic statement that we should carefully consider. Paragogic hey, important, underscoring.
In English, it's an explanation point.
Exactly where I was going with that. Indeed. And the cohortative. Who wants to take a whack at what the cohortative means? Richard's saying I'm still busy. I'm still busy with the.
We're going to lose the stream. I can tell you that right now.
Okay, he's saying that we're having challenges with
Technical troubles
with the internet stream, so he's got his hands full. The cohortative is a first-person expression of volition. So that means the speaker, when he is speaking in first person, is conveying his intent, his will. So that is all needs to be conveyed in an amplified translation so that you understand why it was written in the call imperfect, paragogic, hey, cohortative. And the only one that I didn't describe was the imperfect, which is a conjugation. There was only two of them in Hebrew. Since Hebrew is not stuck in time, there is no past, present, or future tenses in Hebrew. The only reference to time in Hebrew is the perfect and imperfect conjugation. And in the perfect conjugation, which this is not, you're speaking of something which is finite in time. It's something that has transpired either in the past, is happening now, but in the present, but with a terminus. This is a moment that is limited in time, or something that will happen in the future,
ongoing,
but only at a specific moment in time. So it is constrained in time.
Yeah.
While the imperfect speaks of habitual, ongoing behavior. So that is the difference between the two. So in this case, he was making a habit of listening intensely, and he heard something that should grab our attention. Echad, which is the Hebrew word for what?
One.
Kodesh, what is that the Hebrew word for?
Set apart.
That's correct. So then I chose to listen intently, and I heard Echad Kodesh, one who is set apart, one who is special and distinct, prepared and devoted, uncommon. And therefore, this person could not be political, could not be religious, because either of those two things would make this individual common, because those are the most common things among humans. He was uncommon, which means he was set apart from them and unto God. And he was speaking, Debar. He was communicating, using words and language. He just talking away. Peel, participle, masculine, singular. The object is influenced by the dramatic and impassioned nature of the message being conveyed by this individual. This is a man who has a way with words, is what he was saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The set apart one asked, Amar, queried, the Palmoni, one who intervenes and delivers salvation in an exceptional way. Laha Palmoni, to the one uniquely prepared to intercede and to save, in whom we can be confident in considering. It is from Palal to intervene, to intercede, and to do so judgmentally. Pala, to be distinct, separated, distinguished, and absolutely set apart. This is a very uncommon and unique individual. Pele, to safely deliver and to save. Pala, in a uniquely exceptional and miraculous way. And that's relevant because in Numbers 15, Yahweh says specifically that this bull is going to deliver salvation for this mortal remnant of God's people in a Pala, exceptionally miraculous way.
Yahweh seems to think he's a big deal, huh?
Yeah, it concludes with Ma, pondering the implications of these things, because we are encouraged to think about them, and On, which would mean all things pertaining to this. To speak. So he asked the Palmoni to speak. This is Elia asking Yada, who serves in this role, to speak as who he is, a restoring witness, an Ad, to explain the extent and the duration, the mate, for how long will be the scope and time of this prophecy to be perceived.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're talking about that 7 years that begins on Shabuah and concludes on Towrah. That is the time of Jacob's troubles. This is when Israel is ravaged more severely than at any time in her
Entire
4,000-year history.
It's going to be very
And
ugly.
it ends on Towrah with the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah, when all of Israel's adversaries are exterminated and the earth is returned to the conditions experienced during Eden. And this Palmoni, as the Adamah Parah, is sacrificed to purge the remaining remnant of Yisrael of their guilt, particularly inadvertent guilt,
Unintentional guilt.
so that they are prepared to enter the millennial Shabat. So he asked the Palmoni to speak as a restoring witness to explain the extent and duration of this prophecy to be perceived pertaining to the unrelenting overall continuance and duration, tamid, of the destructive and revolting rebellion of deadly and devastating criminal defiance. This is the turmoil of the time of Jacob's troubles, and of this causing the set apart and the heavenly host. The set apart would be Wakodesh, those who are separated and uncommon, and the Wasaba, the spiritual envoys, to ponder the implications of those trampled by oppression, subjugated, and persecuted. This would be Jews worldwide, and particularly Israelis at this time. Daniel, God judges and vindicates. Daniel 8:13. So the realization here is that the Palmoni, the one who intervenes and delivers salvation in an exceptional way, is being addressed as a fellow witness. And therefore, he is Yada, and he cannot be the third member of this group of prophets. Therefore, he is not Dode. He is being
Nope.
asked to quantify the duration and extent of the period that the unrelenting will endure. This revolting devastation that is so horrible that causes even the set apart and the heavenly host to question the implications of this. It becomes that horrendous. Also, troubling in all of this, the preponderance of English Bibles, which almost universally render ha-tamid as either the daily sacrifice or the regular sacrifice, even though tamid doesn't speak of daily, regular, or
No.
sacrifice,
No,
making it quite curious as to why they went there.
they
And I've
pulled it out of their hat.
Wow, I've chosen to render it with its full and complete etymological connotation. Additionally, there is a material difference between the way the King James Version, the New American Standard Bible, and the NILT, New Living Not a Translation, renders Kodesh. While the word in its various forms, Kadash is the verbal root and Kadosh is the noun form, means to be set apart, separated, special, uncommon, and distinct, theologians prefer to convey it using religious garb, such as holy, saints,
Holy.
or sanctuary. Now, this is a critical mistake because there are very few things as important to our relationship with God, whether even we have a relationship with God, than understanding the implications of being Kodesh, set apart. It's only when we are set apart from man's way, religion and politics and militarism, and patriotism, conspiracy, that we are separated from the human norms, that we can be set apart unto God.
So true.
Coming to understand Kodesh
yeah,
is as important as anything that we must do in our quest to be part of God's covenant family. The covenant, by the way, is Kodesh.
Yeah.
Further, when this instructive term is mischaracterized, becoming religious, it is turned into a false prophecy. There will be no restored sanctuary to give over to the host, tossing the faithful into the quicksand of religious toxicity. If we want to know the truth and be counted among the enduring and set apart, we need to know what the words God is using actually mean. Therefore, Elia wants his fellow witness to explain. To those who are being tormented by this appalling cast of characters in the end, to realize that their ordeal will be resolved, that it has a limited time that it will play out, which happens to be 7 years. And since we jumped ahead in previous programs, probably now over a month ago, to analyze what is presented in Daniel 12, because it establishes the parameters of this time, we realize that this time of Jacob's troubles either commences on the Shabuah of May 22nd, 26, making the horrid experience last 7 years and 4 months, or on June 11th, 2027, such that it is 6 years and 3 months in duration. And it concludes either way on Towrah, September 24th, 2033. When the mortal remnant of Israel will return and be purged. And at this time, we discovered that the Towrahless one will arrive to pursue his political objectives, doing so on the 29th of January in 2030, during the last week of Ramadan. And he will announce his religious decree on a Friday, the 15th of March, the Ides of March, in that same year, just 45 days later. 33 days after that, the two witnesses will arrive, doing so on Passover,
whoop, whoop.
April 18th, 2030. Now, the reason that I gave you two different Shabuah dates is by design. I'm quite convinced that Yahweh wants us to be open-minded about this period of time, and that there are likely different events that are scheduled between them, with the divestiture of the heart of Israel as the two-state solution taking place on the first Shabuah, the 22nd of May, 2026, commencing the time of Yaakov's troubles, and the most devastating act commencing such that God's covenant family are removed in the harvest of Shabuah in 2027, that being the Shabbat of June 11th. And that these two celebrations of the Shabbat, both on Shabuah, both on a Shabbat, frame this beginning of this time as to what is going to transpire.
That's the springboard.
So this time, the question is being framed a little differently than it was previously. This is describing the entire duration of the time of Israel's troubles, because the Palmoni, one who intervenes and delivers salvation in an exceptional way, as an restoring witness, has been asked to quantify and explain the extent and the duration of this prophecy, to be properly perceived and intellectually and intelligently beheld, pertaining to the unrelenting overall continuance and duration of the destructive and revolting religious rebellion, of deadly and devastating political and criminal defiance, which is so grossly offensive and so contrarian, causing the set apart and the heavenly host to ponder the implications of those who are being trampled now by oppression, subjugation, and persecution. And all they're concerned of at this point is Israel and Jews worldwide. Therefore, this would be the duration, the entire duration of the time of trouble, from its horrendous beginning to its glorious conclusion. And based upon Yeshaya's declaration in the 17th chapter of Isaiah, it must commence with the fulfillment of Shabuah. And so, based upon the answer in the next statement, we know which promise of the Shabbat is the one that will begin the time of trouble. Now, this will reveal the last possible date that the so-called two-state solution can be imposed on Israel. This narrowing of the nation at the waist between Gaza and what is errantly referred to as the occupied territories of the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, which will make Israel vulnerable and indefensible, which is the intent. So while the devil's advocate will rise to international prominence based upon his role in brokering this deal, it will immediately trigger war, with millions of combatants flooding into what remains of Israel, trampling God's land and people underfoot. The intent of this Marxist Muslim coalition will be to turn the two-state solution into the final solution to what they view as the Jewish problem.
Yes, you see, Allah is the curse.
One of the most disgusting people on earth today, Greta Thunberg.
Dumberg, yeah.
She is back on a flotilla.
For the second time.
They got sidetracked. Climate change pushed them back into Spain. But they will set to sail again. And their group of boats, ugly boats and ugly yachts. And as they head to Gaza. Now, my suggestion the previous time is the same as it is this time. Let them in. Just don't let them out.
Exactly.
That is exactly what should happen.
One-way ticket.
But the reason I bring her up, because I'm really disgusted by her, and if I never see that name or ugly mug again, it'd be too soon, is that she's now sporting a necklace, a pendant, beneath that ever-growing ugly mug of hers. And it is the entire state of Israel as it is presently configured.
As Palestine.
And you know what? Yes, it is.
Of course.
Palestine will be free. In her view, it is the extermination of Jews. That is the Muslim plan, and Marxists who are supporting them, as is this little witch of a little girl. Total genocide of God's people, their obliteration.
It should be fitting that it's Greta Thunberg. She has no empathy.
This is the answer now that we have been waiting for. And he said to me, this was now the Palmoni, the savior of God's people at the end, is speaking. For the duration of 2,300 ensuing periods of darkness in the evening, this is Arab nights of noxious foreigners, including Arabians, and the gloom resulting from weaving many threads together. With the dawn of a new day and the time of enlightenment to reflect and to be contemplative in the morning regarding the arrival of the bull. You see, these words were chosen for a reason. One of Bakor's primary definitions, and it is used all the way through Numbers 15 as God's laying out his whole story. And you can see now, this is one of the advantages of being able to do a program like this once you've learned more. I amplified Bakor based upon the just highlights that would normally come to mind as you read the word. I did the same thing with Arab. But Bakor is used throughout Numbers 15. And throughout Numbers 15, it speaks of something that we ought to be cognizant of here, which is the bull.
Yep.
And so it's not just the dawning of a new day, because the bull is present for the sacrifice early in the morning of Towrah. So that is when this time concludes, when the bull arrives early in the morning of Towrah.
You were always a morning person. It's so irritating.
To establish a new day where we are prepared for the arrival of the Messiah and King and re-entry into Eden. And that which precedes it, the Arab, is not simply evenings, but it talks about an ensuing period of darkness, that one lasting 2,300 days. And it is specific of a noxious swarm of Arabs.
Yeah.
It's the same word for Arab. And the gloom that results from weaving many threads together. Boy, is that ever a profound explanation of what we're dealing with. Then the set apart will be vindicated as right.
Imagine that.
So 2,300 days, which commence with the arrival of noxious swarms of Arabs, and concludes early in the morning with the bull for the dawning of a new day.
Yeah, you always liked your mornings.
So then the set apart will be vindicated as right. That is the moment, that early morning of Towrah, when the Bakor, the bull, is, as the Palmoni, is going to save God's mortal remnant so that they are prepared to enter into Yahweh's company as he returns with Dod, and so that the metaphorical adulterous woman, religious Israel, is, well, ignorant of her as opposed to the belligerent of her,
Yeah.
are purged for this upcoming wedding to the king and to entering the earth's restored to the conditions of Eden. Wow. Daniel 8:14.
It's a big job, huh?
So clearly, Yah was quite the wordsmith, because I can tell you, I don't recall saying those words, but for the first time now I know what they mean. And obviously, they were conveyed through a my nefesh, but 2,650 years ago. It is remarkable, because it is one of the things that is so surprising to people, is that they're okay with the idea of knowing that Eliah has two lives. No one who reads the Torah and prophets challenges the idea that Eliah is going to have two lives. So they're comfortable with Eliah's nefesh,
or even Dod,
and Bashar and nefesh disappearing, and that his nefesh enduring and Shamaim, heaven, and that he is coming back with a reconstituted, because his nefesh can't endure in Shamaim. There can be there's no bodies in past 3.5 dimensions. There are no physical bodies. So he has to have a new body constituted from
DNA.
From Yahweh, reconstituting it from his DNA, and his nefesh, soul, is put into that body as he comes back. And no one's got a problem with that. But they have a problem for some reason with David, who also lived a full life, and him coming back as his soul, because clearly Dod is God's favorite. He's the chosen one. He's the exemplar of the covenant. He is our savior. He is God's beloved firstborn son. If there's any soul in heaven, the first one to arrive has to be Dod. He's the firstborn of the covenant. Yahweh has made that absolutely clear. So why would it then be difficult for Yahweh to take Dod's soul and put it into a physical Bashar body to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim 1,000 years after Dod's first life, as Dod himself explained when he told us that his body at that time will be crucified, as he explained crucifixion in first person of him himself enduring it in the 22nd Mizmor song. And since it is obvious, absolutely irrefutably obvious, that Yahweh has said innumerable times that his firstborn son, his chosen one, the Messiah, Dod, as the former king of Israel, is coming back with him, as brilliant as the sun, as Elyon in his presence, to rule as sovereign forevermore. Well, Dod clearly has that life as well. So Dod wrote in this 22nd Mizmor about his life as our savior, fulfilling Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim, opening the door to life, carrying our guilt away on Matzah so that we can be perfected in God's view, and then opening the opportunity for us to follow the firstborn son, becoming the firstborn children of the covenant. And that he will then return again 2,000 years thereafter in year 6,000 Yah as the king of the universe. So we know that Dod, because it speaks of them, has 3 lives.
Yeah.
We know Eliah has at least 2 lives. And because of the description of what Eliah does by way of his sacrifice and the entirety of the Torah and prophetical presentation of him, he has 3 as well, because he is also part of those miraculous events on Kippurim, so that the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant can be properly anointed, because he is the goat. We know he has 2. Those who study the Torah and prophets realize that he will have a 3rd. This fellow that is speaking here, the Palmoni, he has 3 as well. And we know this because he is speaking here, but the fact is that Yahweh specifically says that he will be the sacrifice on Towrah, and yet he is Yahweh's herald and his best man, his right hand forevermore. So his physical body is taken, which is he will willingly give up because it has no value to him going forward, but his soul continues. Now, we know that prophets like Moshe, like Yeshaya, like Dod, were taken back and forward in time. And the creation account, Moshe, to write about it, had to be taken back in time to witness these events so that he could write about them and the conversations that took place in Gan Eden, as well as to depict the nature of the flood with Noah, as well as to witness the conversations, this profound narrative on the covenant between Yahweh and Abraham and Sarah. So we know Moshe had to go, his soul had to be taken back in time to witness those events, and then forward in time because he speaks eloquently of the arrival of Dod in the 18th chapter of Devarim. And he speaks of there being a third Zeroah in the end. There are many prophetic statements, including the recognition that there will be Eldod, the Almighty's beloved, and my Dod, who is King Dod's right hand, in Numbers 13.
Not only that, all throughout Kara, the same story is told that the remedy is a bull, a goat, and a ram.
Throughout.
All throughout 19 through 24, it's all there. So, same thing.
Because we know that Dod went forward in time to witness his own crucifixion, and then had to be back in time to write that story in the 22nd and 88th Mizmor Psalms. And at that point, we have this full understanding that it is possible for a prophet, the soul of a prophet, to be taken back and forward in time by Yahweh. And this is partly because as an energy-based existence, a soul enveloped in the spirit of Yahweh becomes like light. And on a photon of light, all time exists, which means that you can see the future in the past, and then report what you have seen as future history back in the past. And so as a soul being used in this way by Yahweh, you can go forward and back in time.
Right.
And at any time, Yahweh can very easily put this nephesh soul, this consciousness, into a physical body because, well, he designed them with DNA and they're very easy for him to construct. And they are a diminished form of energy anyway.
It's just code. And you asked a question in the beginning. Why do we recognize that Eliah has two lives and not Dod or potentially you? And that's an easy, you want the short answer? Because then we can't make shit up.
Well,
and we can't formulate these wonderful religions that would come and bite us right back and that took us and kill us.
Yeah. Rabbis know that Dod is returning. They even know he's returning on Passover. Because they set a table for him and they go and open the door for him to come in.
Only they won't be visiting their home.
Now, so the fact is that when he returns, he's going to be like he was originally, which means he is the most outspoken opponent of religion and politics among Israelis. So he will devastate them. He is not coming in as
he's not a friend of the rabbis. Let's just say that.
Them.
Yeah.
So this is what we're dealing with here, is that God uses certain characters in his story such that these souls are exceptional in certain ways, and God likes working with them, so he will have them appear in the past and in the future and in the present. And this is what we're witnessing here. So,
and there's another, ponder the implications of, it's perhaps that the three Zeroah were the only ones capable, willing, and trustworthy and reliable enough to complete the task.
Yeah.
Who knows?
So these are going to be exceptionally long days and nights, the worst in Israel's history. And they have a long history of being abused. And this time we're told explicitly that there will be this swarm of noxious Arabs at the beginning of this period, and that there will be an early sunrise with a bull that will conclude this period. And therefore, God's people should be aware of this time and how it begins and how it will end. By counting mornings and evenings, we are also alerted to the fact that the opening and closing Moedim of the time of trouble, Shabuah and Towrah, comprise full days and will unfold on that schedule wherever you may be or live.
Yep.
And the reason for this, we're going to get to that in a moment, but the 2,300 days requires a full expression of Shabuah and Towrah. Just as right now, the Shabuah dates that I gave you of May 22nd, 2026, and this particular one that is being designated here, the Shabuah of the Shabat of June 11th, 2027. Well, it starts on the 11th, but it concludes on the 12th. And while it is a 24-hour period, in our reckoning of time now, and he's speaking to us now, it transpires over 2 days as we contemplate them, the 11th and 12th of September, a Friday evening, and throughout the ensuing Saturday. And the same thing will be true with Towrah, where there is a gleaning on the 23rd of September, a Friday evening, and then it's going to be the fullest, most extensive, most miraculous and power-packed day in human history, when the Bakor, who is then described as the Parah, this productive bull, is sacrificed, and all of the ensuing events that transpire about that on the Shabat of September 24th of 2030. So this is going to unfold on that schedule wherever you may be, and that is also a part of this too, that yes, the harvest of those in Jerusalem on Shabuah will begin on the sunset of Shabuah.
Yes.
But that sunset of Shabuah takes place over 24 hours around the globe.
Yes.
The beginning of
it's
it
a
and
circular
the end of it
world.
Transpire over 24 hours worldwide.
Don't tell the flat earthers.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
it would be devastating.
They don't want to devastate their myths now. So, this being so,
Okay.
the full duration of the time of Israel's testing at 2,300 days represents 6 years, the number of man. 3 months, the number of bimillennial epochs, from being expelled from the garden to explaining how we return by Abraham's and Ishak's climb out Mount Moriah to serve as a harbinger for Dod, being the beloved son that God provides as the lamb to fulfill Pesach. That being in going from 3968 BCE, the expulsion from Eden, to 1968 BCE, and the forecasting of Passover, and Dod's fulfillment of it is the Son of God and the Lamb in 33 CE. So we have 3968 BCE, 1968 BCE with Abraham and Ishak, and then 33 CE with those epochs, each being separated by 40 Yobel, which is 2,000 years. So that's the first two, separation. From year 0 to year 2000 Yah is 1. Year 2000 Yah to year 4000 Yah, when Dod fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim in 33 CE, is 2. The third is 2033, when Towrah, Kippurim, and Sukkah are fulfilled and celebrated.
Yeah.
So it is
good times.
2,300 days and plus 6 years, which is the number of man. 3 months, the number of these bimillennial epics. 2 weeks, which is the number of witnesses that will be serving in this role for the beginning and ending 2 Moedim, and 4 days, representing the sequence of 40 Yobel that play right into the heart of all of this. Now, I've done the math. And we'll share it with you at this point. So working backwards from Towrah on the 24th of September, 2033, we must count 267 days in year 2033, which is the year leading up to it. The intervening years of 2028, 2029, 2030, 2031, and 2032 include 2 leap days, which adds another 1,827 sunsets and sunrises in total. From noxious swarms of Arabs to the early morning sacrifice of the bull. An additional 204 days in 2027 brings us to a Shabuah celebration, the Shabat of June 11th, 2027.
Damn, you're right. Okay. Yep.
1,298 days. This is 2 days shy of the total 1,300. And therefore, with references to morning and evenings, we have 4 options to account for this residual 48 hours. The first, a full revolution of our planet, making the reference to sunrises and sunsets applicable, as opposed to just saying days, to everyone around the world, plays out over 24 hours. Since the commencement and the conclusion are worldwide events affecting everyone on Earth, we have a perfectly viable explanation of the additional 48 hours, such that everyone can participate. Second, there is so much going on during Towrah that I would not be surprised if it played out over 2 or 3 days. On Friday evening, we will celebrate the fulfillment of the final ingathering of the covenant family, a gleaning of olives from the uppermost and the lower branches, which will have been cut away. This will likely occur at sunset at the beginning of the day of the herald, at least in Jerusalem, but at sunset everywhere around the world.
Yeah.
And it means that the black, the white, and the dappled spiritual chariots that Yahweh speaks of and Zechariah are going to begin their worldwide journey at this time to collect and reject Israelites, while assigning Goyim, they're assessing, I should say, Goyim, bringing the anti-religious and apolitical Israelites and Goyim to Yisrael for the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah, the Palmoni, at this time. They've got to go all around the world, and that is explained in Yeshaya, it is explained Isaiah, and it is explained in Zechariah, that they go around the world. It's a big job, and literally everyone who can be cleansed to enter the time of our return to Eden and to witness Dod and Yahweh's return on Yom Kippurim will be. And everyone who is still religious, political, antagonistic towards Israel, whether they be religious Jews, Christians, Muslims, or Marxists, they're going to be exterminated. It is a lot to process at this time. Now, once there, the recently returned will not only have to be properly positioned to view the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah, this Palmoni, we must also make room for the survivors who have been in Jerusalem all the while. Both groups will have to be arranged to benefit from the cleansing waters without being singed by the searing flames of this sacrifice. So not only will this be the greatest show on earth, there are some other logistics which have to be resolved during this moment. For example, the remaining religious and defiantly political among the surviving remnant in Jerusalem must be removed and discarded. And we're not going to have that conflict with the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah, because this is not a three-ring circus. God wants everyone who is going to survive this to witness every episode of it play out.
Yep.
Then Elia will serve as the master of ceremonies to explain what the gathered are now witnessing, in addition to preparing the audience to benefit from what's occurring. You know, it's like we were talking before the show began, and there were some examples of what a rival group, Mother Goddess cult, is trying to provide in terms of translations, and they really aren't very good. But what they're missing is commentary, explanation. And the same thing would be true here. If you're shown the event of the Adam of Parah and the waters being released and the flames being ignited by Yahweh, and the purging influence of them, while all of those who have come to destroy Israel are destroyed, and the earth is terraformed back into the conditions of Eden, and you're witnessing this, and yet there's no one to explain to you what's happening, why it's happening, you're not going to understand it.
Well, counterfeits never explain.
Right. They
convolute.
The context here is what's important. It must be explained. Elia is essential to this, because there isn't anybody other than the returnees from the two harvests, Shabuah and Towrah, and Yahowah, of course, who will be witnessing all of this and participating in it, and Adod and myself as the other witness. No one else is going to know what's going on. It needs to be explained. The explanation, which would be the commentary, is as essential to the events that they are witnessing. And so Elia will serve as the master of ceremony. He is going to take his time. He is going to explain what every aspect of this means, how it pertains to what something God shared with us previously, how it is the fulfillment of prophecy, and where it leads based upon what God has promised. Now, all the while, every assailant who has come to plunder, rape, abduct, and kill Jews, these would be mostly Muslims, must be eliminated, not only in Jerusalem, but throughout Israel. They will be incarcerated, along with the remaining overtly political and religious worldwide, including Orthodox Jews.
Yep.
And if that were not enough, Yahweh will be restoring Yehudah first, and then the entire planet to the conditions experienced in Eden. Imagine that. All traces of religion and politics and militarism
Gone.
are all gone, along with the political and the religious.
Sweet.
Bearing it all while terraforming the earth. It's going to be a marvelous spectacle. And I'm certain that, that scroll that Yahweh says he's going to raise for the occasion, that those in Jerusalem are going to have this window on the world And they're going to see all this transpire, and it's going to be marvelous, but you can't pack this many events into one day, along with the explanations, and expect it to transpire in a normal 24-hour period.
And the mechanism
of time.
for all of this is the individual known as, titled as Palmoni.
Mm-hmm.
And its root word is palal, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
to intervene.
So yeah, it also means to break apart. And it is funny that it all comes back full circle, because when humanity was together, they sought to build a tower.
Mm-hmm.
And Yahweh came down and palal, broke them apart. And he's going to break the religion and the political nonsense out of us. Those that will be left will be teachable.
Okay. So we have this amazing series of events that is transpiring. And even then, the mission of Towrah is far from complete.
Yeah.
Because the witnesses and the covenant family will be immediately put to work. And they have to educate the purged and the restored remnant who have arrived and are here only because it was determined by the Ruach of Yahweh that their guilt was inadvertent. In other words, they were misled as opposed to misleading. And therefore, they were correctable for this moment. But the fact is, they're ignorant. And God doesn't do well with the ignorant. So they're guiltless for this moment. But unless they're properly educated and in a hurry on what not to say and do, they're going to not stay that way for the 10 days that they need to stay that way for them to experience Dode's return. Mm-hmm. So we have to educate them, and in a hurry. And if this all plays out over the most active 48 hours in our planet's history, then we will have 8 days remaining to prepare for the homecoming and the wedding on Kippurim and our ascent into infinity. Just 8 days, which is, of course, the symbol of eternity. Now, third, dealing with this 48 hours. Should the imposition of an Islamic state gouged out of the heart of Israel occur during the year prior to Shabuah in 2027, say by Shabuah in 2026, then the brutal siege, I should say, foretold as Al-Aqsa 2.0 in Yoel, as it is explained, and again in Yashayah, both the places that speak of this ensuing flood of an Al-Aqsa 2.0, of an Al-Aqsa flood 2.0. It's going to commence on June 9th, 2027. Now, there's a fourth way to look at this as well. This timeline was offered when a year was comprised of 12 29.5 lunar day months, which resulted in a 354 to 360 day year. This pronouncement was 5 centuries before the Julian calendar was even invented, and 2,200 years before the Gregorian calendar that I used for these calculations existed. Therefore, to be accurate within 48 hours, 2,500 years in advance, and
two calendar changes,
3 iterations of calendar systems is pretty darn spectacular, and we could just leave it at that. Therefore, with the minuscule difference between 1,298 versus 1,300 days explained and resolved by any one or a combination of the preceding, we are afforded 2 options regarding the timing of the Shabuah harvest. It will either occur on May 22nd, 2026, with the realization that the time of troubles then begins the following year, or we can expect this Katsir to actually serve as the beginning of the 2,300-year period of anguish for Israel and the world. If the former, then the flood of Islamic terrorists described in Yeshaya and Yoel will commence a year after the harvest. If the latter, it is a simultaneous event occurring with exacting prophetic documentation. And of course, there is also the option, my favorite of these, is that the time of trouble and begins in the sense of it's set up with the imposition of a two-state solution that is the ultimate dissolution of Israel on or before Shabuah in 2026, less than 10 months from now. And that the attack that makes this time of trouble so egregious for Israel with Alaska Flood 2.0 and the subsequent harvest to get God's children out transpires in 2027 on the 11th of June. Now, since we have received very specific pronouncements from Gabriel and Michael, and now the Palmoni is one of the witnesses, regarding the arrival of Satan's corporeal manifestation, of his pronouncement that he is God, and of the day the witnesses begin their mission against him, each of which I have specified in this program, then there is no reason for us to treat this documentation any different. They have been specific. Further, when we consider the specificity of Gabriel's attestation of the day that he would fulfill the celebration of Chag Matzah, Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim in 33 CE, and he gave the concluding date of Chag Matzah in 33 CE, 500 years before he returned to fulfill it. There's every reason to respect the accuracy of these numbers.
The statistical probability alone.
Yeah. Therefore, while we can disagree with the conclusions, I'm expecting the Shabuah Katsir to occur on the 11th of June, 2027. And I'm delighted that it appears that we have a year more than what we had previously anticipated. And I'm thrilled to have more time to accomplish this mission as a result. So we should prepare as if we have but 10 months and plan as if we have almost 2 years. So much is at stake, so many souls, so much to share throughout eternity, so much to accomplish on behalf of our God and King, that we need to use the time that we have as judiciously as possible. Now, since there is an additional insight provided here regarding this time, and this time it was provided by Gabriel, let's jump ahead momentarily and consider it now. The many reasons associated with Shabuah and the Shabbat, along with the vows pertaining to the thing 7 represents, even 77s, are determined and decreed on behalf of your people and the extended family, and upon your set-apart city and its distinctly uncommon inhabitants, to bring an end to religious rebellion, eliminating the revolting communal defiance and contrarian ways, to affix the signature which seals up the guilt associated with having missed the way, precluding ever being wrong again, to provide reconciliation for religious error, purging the perverse corruptions and twisted perversions, to arrive with and bring that which is eternally right, always correct, forever accurate and honest, thereby attaining everlasting deliverance and vindication, to provide a personal seal and signature to revelation, confirming and completing these prophetic communications and of prophecy, while also anointing the most set apart. Daniel 9:24. Therefore know and gain insights to understand that from the going forth of the word to return and restore, rebuilding Jerusalem, until the restoring testimony and the eternal witness of the Son of the Sovereign, who is conspicuously making this known, and who is providing the leadership and counsel regarding the Messiah, the anointed Messiah, are 7 sevens, and thus 7 promises of fulfilled vows. Therefore, in 62 weeks, she will be restored and rebuilt, and all to reestablish and to fortify the way to grow and to expand by being diligent and decisive in a troubled time of oppression. Then, after the 62 weeks, the anointed Messiah will be cut off and separated, but not for himself. And therefore, he, as an exceedingly influential, self-aggrandizing, and overbearing person, going to vault himself into prominence by arrogantly confirming and imposing a treaty, a covenant, an agreement, and an arrangement with a great many, including plenty of rabbis, the preponderance of the people, and especially the elitists, for 1 week, based upon a single promise during a particular Shabuah. Daniel 9:27. And halfway through the week, he will stop the observance of the Shabat and seek to forestall the benefit of the sacrifice which has been freely offered as a gift. The most extreme aspect of this vile and abhorrent action of repulsive religious idolatry will devastate, desolate, and incapacitate up to the very end, bringing destruction and annihilation along with the conclusion of the restoring witness. And it will occur quickly and decisively with determination and decrees profusely poured out upon the deserted, desolated, and destroyed, who are astonished and stupefied, and who will perish because they are too stunned to respond. Daniel 9:27. Well, this statement by Dode as Gabriel serves as an absolute affirmation of Shabuah as the starting point of the time of trouble.
But also, he called you the sovereign son.
But it also speaks of the great abomination occurring halfway through the week. And that cannot be precise with either a 7-year and 4-month or a time of trouble, or one at 6 years and 3 months and plus 1.5 months. Therefore, both dates remain in play, with June 11th as a fulfillment of Shabuah being the most likely due to the precision of the 2,300 days versus just halfway through a week. Now, digging a bit deeper, since the Palmoni only stated that the time of trouble would last 2,300 days, and he did not mention Shabuah, just as Gabriel didn't mention Towrah as the concluding date, we are required to do our own reconnaissance, and for that, we should also turn to Yeshayah. Now, trust me on this. There was so much that to unpack, as we say, in that previous statement from Daniel 9 as cited by Gabriel. We're going to go back to that in a future program, because that it is so magnificent in its detail, explaining exactly what's going to transpire. But for right now, I'm just trying to frame in this period of time, because everything that Dode, as Gabriel said, pertains to what transpires on Towrah in 2033, and it goes backwards approximately a week of years to Shabuah, and we're just trying to ascertain which Shabuah it is, whether May 22nd of 2026 or June 11th of 2027. So we'll return to that. But I do want to share this from Yeshaya. This is from the 17th chapter. This is where we learned that, in fact, this terrible person that is going to affirm this treaty with many has to be the president of the United States, who is now Donald Trump.
T-Rump.
And it will transpire in either 2026 or 2027. And Yeshaya 18 makes it irrefutable that this individual is the arrogant head of a very menacing militant country, speaking specifically of the United States and the role that it will play betraying Israel. So this is the 17th chapter that precedes that.
Yeah.
Yeshaya, my favorite prophet, wrote, and it will actually come to pass in that day, that the size of Israel will be decreased to the point of no longer being sustainable. Then the most important place at the midsection of his body will be leaned, shrinking in size, sacrificed in a counterproductive and unsustainable manner as part of the hidden agenda of diseased dignitaries. 17:4. And it shall become like the gathering in and receiving of a harvest at the proper time toward the end, which must be cut short to the extent of man's provocation, his anger, his reaping. The standing grain, I should say, must be removed from the chaff in season, cutting it away so as to remove it from a vexing time of grief, thereby establishing and validating the prominent and mature grain. Also, his Zeroah, the one who sows and cultivates his seeds, will produce a harvest, and it will be as one would conduct a gleaning, a secondary harvest of first fruits in the valley of Raphaim, in the midst of those destined to die, who were too set in their ways and too apathetic to exert the effort required to prevail. In him, this would be Jacob or Israel in the covenant, there will be those souls who will be spared and survive, in addition to the physical bodies of those who will be left behind, gleanings of those purposefully left on the vine, and in going around at the right time of the year to remove them from a threatening and dangerous situation, encompassing and striking them with a branch as a means of harvesting an olive tree. There will be 2 or 3 ripe olives in the top uppermost branch, representing Yehudim, 4 or 5 on its fruitful and productive branches, which were separated and cut away, representing the Israelites. Prophetically declares Yahweh, the God of Israel. Isaiah 17:4, 5. Should be, yeah. 4, 5, and 6, yes. There is also, this is an announcement and a warning to everyone who thirsts. Choose to walk towards the water, towards the source of cleansing and life. That is what's transpiring on Towrah. Then let the one who wants to enjoy the benefits of the relationship do so without cost, because the path to walk to get the most enjoyment out of life does not require anyone to pay anything. You have been given this opportunity to go about acquiring food, choosing to procure and obtain that which is needed and is nourishing, and wine without any money, and milk without remuneration or compensation. This is Isaiah 55:1. So please explain, why do you spend continually paying out money for that which is not actually nourishing, such that your labor is not satisfying and produces nothing of lasting result? He is chastising rabbis in Judaism. Listen diligent to me, and be nourished by that which is good, by that which is useful and beneficial, productive and valuable, pleasurable and enjoyable, with these being the most desirable and beneficial options for your soul. Incline your ear, doing so of your own volition, and choose to walk to me. Decide to actually listen so that your soul may continue to exist. Then I will cut you into, establishing for you the everlasting Bereth covenant, which was affirmed and verified with unremitting love and unfailing devotion to Dode. Saying that after this sacrifice of the Palmoni, the Adama Parah, while he purges them of their inadvertent guilt, to become covenant members, they must be taught how to participate in the covenant. And this requires a realization that we do so by capitalizing on what Dode accomplished by fulfilling Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim. That's why Dode is specifically mentioned here. That is why the covenant is mentioned here. That is the progression of events.
He is the sovereign.
So now, presently, therefore, an enduring witness with restoring testimony regarding the means to return, who will be providing evidence regarding eternity for as long as time permits, to people of every ethnicity and culture being gathered, to the community being brought together and assembled for this reason. I will bestow, offering him as a gift, bringing him forward at this time, and devoting him to this purpose as an authorized counterpart and a prince publicly promoting the truth, as a conspicuous messenger announcing what needs to be said and to be known, as the leader of the royal family, and as an instructor and teacher providing direction, who is appointed, ordained, and in charge, whose authority is not questioned. For an misled world of people from every ethnicity and culture who are now gathered for this common cause. Therefore, presently, a lone goy, a non-Israelite, whom you have not known as Yada, and whom you have consistently failed to recognize or appreciate, who you should read and recite, welcome and greet. In addition, this lone goy who is not understood or respected by you as Yada, and who possesses information you fail to comprehend, will be quickly brought to you and will waste no time in his intense and consistent focus on you as he pursues you on behalf of Yahweh, your God, and the set-apart one, being Dode of Yisrael.
As he relentlessly pursues you.
For indeed, he is reaffirming your status, lifting you up by shaking the tree to knock off the fruit that can be gleaned, preparing you for the harvest by recognizing and respecting your value. Yashaya, Isaiah 1-5. So in this case, the reference to standing grain represents Shabuah.
Yes.
While the gleaning of olives represents Towrah, the beginning and end of the time of Yaakov's troubles. And so by recognizing these final Moedim as the commencement and the conclusion of the time of troubles, we have established the bookends for this fateful time. Everything is set into motion such that those who survive following the fulfillment of Shabuah will witness the rise of Satan to international prominence with a two-state solution and the beginning of the time of Jacob's troubles, which will occur with this flooding of Arabs, of Islamic jihadists into the land and the ensuing terror they will impose, ultimately to the return of the witnesses, the great abomination by where all things Kodesh, set apart and important to Yahweh, are replaced with Hasatan's preferences as conveyed by the Antichrist, as Donald Trump.
Yeah, he's going to Trumpify Jerusalem.
So when we recognize God's cast of characters, we know who to trust and who to avoid. So without further ado, this is Yahweh's ongoing story as reported by Daniel, who is serving as the scribe. And what he said to all of this is that I, Daniel, was seeing and considering the revelation, and I desired and sought the insights to understand. Then behold, present and standing before me was someone who appeared like a confident and courageous man, a Gabor. Daniel 8:15, Gabor indeed, confident and courageous man, serves as the basis of Gabriel, God's most courageous and confident man. And so as Eliah was asking the Palmoni this question to emphasize the accuracy of the result and to present himself as the one who would be making it possible, our king arrived. And there is just so much to this story, so many precise insights to retell and to share. We'll save it for another program, but oh my goodness. Can you imagine anything as detailed or as comprehensive, specific as this has been?
Translation's brilliant and ties things together that
Did not make sense.
never made sense.
And
You
it's,
come to a logical conclusion,
yeah.
which makes sense. Is why I'm here. You know, I'm not sure you guys really understand. You two are like the most important man on the planet, literally.
Well, at this time,
They call you the sovereign's prince.
Yeah, at this time, the role that God has equipped me to play on behalf of Goyim and Yehudim,
it's a big deal.
Is a big deal, because without it, we don't recognize who Dod is.
Nope.
What he has achieved. Without it, no one knows what time it is. The Jews are off by 197 years.
Or even Yahweh's name.
They don't know what Shabuah represents. They don't know what Towrah represents.
Nope.
They don't know what the Adam of Parah represents. They have no clue that Dod is the one who is returning as the Messiah and King. They have no idea when the time of trouble occurs, when the harvest will transpire. They don't even
We're
know
clueless.
Don't even know God's name.
No.
And
We
so,
don't even know why we're back in the land. If you ask your modern Israeli, they don't even know the prophecies of them coming back to the land. They're absolutely clueless. We are clueless as a people.
or that God was very clear with them when he said that you are not my people, and I am not your God, and that we are divorced. And he says, I'm leaving you to your own devices now. I'm going to Shamaim, and I will not return to you until you return to me. And they have not done that.
And the religious use that to take advantage of the situation.
Right. They have usurped their God's authority and claim to speak for him when everything they say is nonsense. There has never been anyone who has exposed the malfeasance of the Christian New Testament and the Talmud and the Quran so that the lies can be expunged from our thought process and that we can begin to build a foundation of truth based upon God's testimony as he revealed it to us. And without this foundation, there is no one who capitalizes upon what God is proposing. Now, that significance, of course, is it dissipates considerably when it is shared with Elia. And then when Dode returns, we are all devoted to serving our sovereign. But we don't get there, and he doesn't return unless we do this job well.
Yep.
Well, unless you lead us out of the mire, we're still stuck in it, pal. There you go.
God's people were initially chosen by him, but they have never chosen God in return.
Nope.
Never once. And they have become ever more belligerent with their religion and their politics, and they're digging themselves a horrendous grave as we speak now. Mm-hmm. And they need someone who is going to shake them to the point that they recognize that Judaism has become their greatest foe. And second onto Judaism is Christianity and Islam, and Marxists as well, and that they have but one Savior. That is Yahweh through his beloved Son, Dode. And that is our story.
It's delusion versus reality.
So as much as was conveyed here in the last 20 minutes of this program, beginning with Dode's assessment in the 9th or the 8th chapter of Daniel, as he explains the prophecy that really unlocks time. Mm-hmm. We'll return to that, because I would like to share with you how each of the items on that list are specifically enabled by the magnificence of what God is going to achieve on Towrah. You know, I would never have imagined and ever that Towrah would be such an enormously important day. Mm-hmm. But while Dode is expressing the day that, and specifically announcing when he will complete Chag Matzah in 33 CE, it has benefit because of what happens on Towrah 2,000 years thereafter.
I think Yahweh calls Towrah the Day of Days. I think he's very excited about Towrah.
I think, clearly it is the most spectacular day in the history of humanity, but of this earth. But, as I appreciate what's happening, Towrah sets up the possibility of Kippurim.
Yes.
And without Kippurim, there is no restoring the earth and re-entry.
There's no reason for it.
1,000-year celebration of Sukkah. And without Sukkah, there is no happily ever after in eternity throughout the universe. So, that 1,000 years is
without a bride, there's no wedding.
For us to educate and prepare the covenant family of God to enter forevermore. We have 1,000 years to rear and raise children properly, and the Torah guidance of our God.
It's a reset.
This is where we are headed, and it is an entirety. It is 15 days plus 8 days. It is 15 days plus 1,000 years. It is a day of days plus the family reunion and homecoming, the ultimate wedding. It is a celebration of a honeymoon that is going to last for a millennia. This is the culmination of prophecy.
It's the end of tyranny.
This is what God did it all for. And so we'll return to this in our next program. Thank you, Rich, for keeping us online even as our systems began to fail, and Leah for your contribution. Let's say I look forward to going back and recovering this ground with you again, because there is so much we can glean from every word that our Messiah, our King, God's firstborn son, Gabriel, shared with us as this is recorded in Daniel 9. So thank you very much for listening. I look forward to being with you next time.
Shalom.